Your memories from childhood may be some of the most vivid and cherished. What seemed like a much simpler time was actually filled with so many things that made life exciting and unforgettable. From family time to spending lots of time outside with friends, the good old days have been etched into our minds because of all the small details that filled our lives. So once again, you might just be old if you remember this. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, cars had style. They came in colors. Real colors like turquoise, bright red, and pink. And they came with tail fins that made them look like they could take flight. The tail fins era of automobile styling peaked between 1955 and 1961. Over that time, tail fins grew ever bigger and glitzier, as seen in the 1959 Cadillac Eldorado, which featured oversized space-age fins. But all trends must pass, and by the 1970s, the futuristic, jet-like fins had largely been phased out of car models. A&W drive-in restaurants were a special place in the 1950s and 1960s. The chain was found in most parts of the country, so the restaurant holds a fond place in many people's memories. Not only could you get carside service, but you could listen to your favorite music on the radio from the comfort of your own car. A&W was a go-to place for a date and a favorite place to stop after a night of cruising the Strip. Who remembers when A&W was the first to serve up a bacon cheeseburger in 1963? Recollection Road is proud to partner with Legacy Box. Watch until the end of this video to find out more about digitizing your family's irreplaceable memories, and then visit legacybox.com/recollection for an incredible 55% off. In 1974, with gas prices high and inflation running rampant, McDonald's introduced us to a new jingle that made us want to buy a Big Mac.
2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
2 whole... Well, what was that word again?
2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
Lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, lettuce, cheese, pickles, oh, what am I saying?
The catchy tune suggested you were getting a whole lot of food for a low price, and it also became a challenge that had everyone repeating it to see if they could do it without messing up. Growing up, it seemed every kid had a couple cap guns they would play with. Whether playing a game of cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers, having a cap gun with a fresh roll of paper caps loaded into it was the best. The sound, the puff of smoke, and the smell of fresh popped caps is one that is hard to forget. Plus, who didn't love using a rock to try to bust the caps against the sidewalk? After school, teenagers during the late 1960s would often rush home in order to catch the latest episode of Dark Shadows. The gothic soap opera gained popularity over its 5-year run, so much so they also made 2 TV movies, a record album, and an assortment of books and comics. The daytime soap had become a phenomenon, and teenagers couldn't get enough of it. After John Glenn drank Tang while he orbited Earth, kids across the country made it their drink of choice. Tang's selling point was that the powder was shelf-stable, and it was sold as a healthier and more convenient alternative to fresh orange juice. Its ties to the space program had it flying off the shelves, and families were waking up to Tang each morning. Although NASA didn't invent the drink, they did make it cool. What are the chances you remember when mail was delivered twice per day? Mail carriers used to walk 20 miles or more per day, and you would receive both morning and afternoon delivery. This practice ended in many places during the 1950s, but for some cities it continued through the 1970s. It's pretty amazing that a mail carrier used to lug around a 50-pound bag of mail in the morning and then have to do it all over again in the afternoon, just so we could get our mail. It also speaks to the volume of mail that was being moved back then. There was a time when you picked up the telephone and spoke to an operator before having your phone call connected. This was before automatic switchboards, which were phased in between the 1950s and the 1970s. Even after the transition to automatic dialing, it was still common to call the operator for many reasons, including directory assistance. Calling information or 411 was still pretty common through the 1990s. That is until the cell phones and the internet changed how we communicate. Remember when both teenage girls and boys wore bracelets back in the day? Girls had their sterling silver charm bracelets that represented everything about them, and they jangled every time they moved their arm. It was a status symbol, and having a ton of charms on your bracelet meant that you had an interesting life. Boys chose to wear POW bracelets to show support for the soldiers in Vietnam during the 1970s. The bracelets were engraved with the name, rank, and date of capture of a prisoner of war or someone missing in action, and you couldn't stop wearing it until your soldier was released or accounted for. If you were of driving age during the 1970s, you certainly will remember the scarcity of gas during that time. Some gas stations ran out of gas, while others had long lines of cars waiting to fill up. The gas crisis, which started in 1973, caused prices to skyrocket and led to some stations posting flags outside, green if they had gas, red if they didn't, and yellow if they were rationing. Some stations limited how much each customer could buy, while others used odd-even rationing, which meant if the last digit of a car's license plate was odd, it could only fill up on odd-numbered days. The 1970s also introduced us to a new kind of hero in the form of the Daredevil Evel Knievel. His bravado and miraculous resilience mesmerized kids, and so it's not surprising that makeshift ramps were constructed on sidewalks across the country during this time. Young boys, in an effort to be like Knievel, would show off by having friends lay down in front of the ramp so they could jump over them on their bike. It was a time when kids weren't afraid to get hurt, and they were always coming up with creative ways to fill the day. Did you ever play with any of these popular toys? Saturday Night Live was filled with funny sketches that made movie stars out of many of its cast members, but during the late 1970s, an unlikely character had us all tuning in. Mr. Bill was a Play-Doh figure that always found himself in a dangerous situation that would eventually lead to him being crushed or dismembered at the hands of Sluggo or Mr. Hands. The Mr. Bill Show lasted until 1981 on SNL, and the final scene has him being crushed by a California fault line that opens up. Did you grow up eating a lot of casseroles for dinner? Whether it was tuna or tater tots, this all-in-one meal was the go-to dinner for busy families decades ago. And it makes sense, because in each serving that was dished up, it was an entire meal packed with vegetables, cheese, carbs, and protein. Plus, it was pretty easy to make on a busy weeknight. Finally, not only were kids riding in the back of station wagons without seatbelts, but they also piled into the back of pickup trucks to get from place to place. They paid no attention to the bumpy roads, the wind, or even the looks from other drivers at stoplights, because riding back there with friends felt like freedom, especially if you were headed to Dairy Queen for some ice cream. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, and make sure to sign up for the Recollection Road newsletter using the link in the description. Recollection Road and Legacy Box both believe it's important to preserve the past. If you're like me, there's a box of your family's treasured home movies and photos tucked away somewhere, and Legacy Box can help you preserve them digitally. The process is a simple and safe solution for converting your home movies and photos to thumb drive or to the cloud. Just send in your Legacy Box filled with old VHS and camcorder tapes, film reels, and pictures, and get back digital copies that can be easily enjoyed, shared, and kept organized. It's that easy. Legacy Box is trusted by over 1 million people, and it's all done right here in the USA. Get started preserving your past today. Go to legacybox.com/recollection to get an incredible 55% off. Buy today to take advantage of this exclusive offer and send in your memories when you're ready. Go to legacybox.com/recollection to save 55% while supplies last. If you enjoyed this video, consider watching the other videos in this series. While you're at it, hit subscribe and share Recollection Road with someone you know. As always, thank you so much for watching.